Welcome to the first video of a new series I will be doing, where I read Wikipedia pages. Comment down below which one you want to see next. If you like the content, make sure to like the video, subscribe, put the notifications on if you want to. The 2011 Joplin tornado was a large and devastating multiple vortex tornado that struck Joplin, Missouri, United States, on the evening of Sunday, May 22, 2011. Part of a larger late May tornado outbreak, the EF5 tornado began just west of Joplin and intensified very quickly, reaching a maximum width of nearly 1 mile during its path through the southern part of the city. The tornado tracked eastward through Joplin and then continued across Interstate 44 into rural portions of Jasper and Newton counties, weakening before it dissipated. The tornado devastated a large portion of the city of Joplin, damaging nearly 8,000 buildings, and of those, destroying over 4,000. The damage, which included major facilities like one of Joplin's 2 hospitals as well as much of its basic infrastructure, amounted to a total of $2.8 billion, making the Joplin tornado the costliest single tornado in U.S. history. The insurance payout was the highest in Missouri history, with the previous record of $2 billion being the hailstorm of April 10, 2001. Overall, the tornado killed 158 people, with an additional 8 indirect deaths, and injured some 1,150 others. It ranks as one of the United States' deadliest tornadoes. It was the deadliest U.S. tornado since the April 9th, 1947 F5 tornado in Woodward, Oklahoma, and the 7th deadliest in U.S. history. It was the deadliest tornado in Missouri history, as well as the first single tornado since the 1953 Flint Beecher tornado in Michigan to cause more than 100 fatalities. It was the first F5/EF5 tornado to occur in Missouri since May 20th, 1957. When an F5 tornado destroyed several suburbs of Kansas City, and the only the second F5/EF5 tornado in Missouri since 1950. It was the third tornado to strike Joplin since May 1971. On the evening of May 21, 2011, an area of low pressure was centered over western Southern Dakota. This feature, in addition to sleep lapse rates and dew points above 60 degrees Fahrenheit, was conducive to the development of supercells later in the day. Very large hail was forecast, but the tornado threat was forecast to remain isolated. At 8 a.m. CDT, the National Weather Service Storm Protection Center issued a slight risk of severe storms for much of the Upper Plains and the Midwest. By 8 a.m. on May 22nd, forecasters at the SPC realized that a more intense weather outbreak was likely to occur and upgraded a large swath of the Midwest to a moderate risk. The system was forecast to evolve into a wave early Monday morning as a trough strengthened from the western United States. At the surface, a cold front was forecast to pass through the region later in the day, while a dry line was forecast to intersect the cold front in Kansas. These features, accompanied with a low-pressure system, encouraged very strong storm development along the cold front. By the 11:30 a.m. updated outlook, certainty had grown stronger that a major severe weather event would occur that afternoon. A public severe weather outlook was issued at this time, and the outlook stated that severe weather was expected that afternoon, with tornadoes, large hail, and strong winds all named as threats. At 1:30 p.m. CDT, 4 hours prior to the tornado, the SPC issued a tornado watch for southwestern Missouri to remain in effect until 9 p.m. CDT. The watch predicted explosive thunderstorm development, with a strong tornado or 2 possible. Thunderstorms began developing between 2 and 3 p.m. over southeast Kansas. They quickly became severe as the thunderstorm development continued moving to the east. Forecasters became more concerned about the imminent tornado development. A tornado warning for the severe thunderstorm west of Joplin that eventually produced the EF5 tornado was first issued at 5:17 p.m. CDT, 17 minutes before it touched down and 19 minutes before it entered the city of Joplin. The tornado first touched down in Newton County, Missouri, just east of the Missouri-Kansas state line, approximately 1/2 mile southwest of the intersection of South Central City Road and 32nd Street at 5:34 p.m. CDT. Eyewitnesses and storm chasers reported multiple vortices reporting around the parent circulation. Here, the tornado downed several large trees at EF0 intensity. Civil defense sirens sounded in Joplin 20 minutes before the tornado struck in response to the tornado warning issued at 5:17 p.m. CDT for northwestern Newton and southwestern Jasper counties in Missouri and southeastern portions of Cherokee County, Kansas. But many Joplin residents did not heed the warning of the sirens. The tornado moved northeast and strengthened to EF1 intensity as it continued through rural areas towards Joplin, snapping trees and power poles and damaging outbuildings. Widening, the tornado then tracked into the more densely populated southwest corner of the city near the Twin Hills Country Club. It heavily damaged several homes at a subdivision in this area at up to EF3 strength. The tornado continued to cause EF3 damage as it moved through another subdivision just east of Iron Gates Road. Numerous homes were destroyed and multiple vortices tossed around, some of which were thrown onto or rolled into homes. The tornado reached EF4 intensity just before crossing S. Schifferdecker Avenue. The now massive and wedge-shaped tornado then crossed S. Schifferdecker Avenue at 5:38 p.m. CDT, producing its first area of EF4 damage only 4 minutes after touching down, as several small but well-built commercial buildings were flattened. One person was killed after they were ejected from their car as the tornado crossed the road. Further strengthening resulted in the tornado reaching EF5 intensity shortly afterwards. Consistent EF4 to EF5 damage was noted east of S. Schifferdecker Avenue and continued through most of southern Joplin. Numerous homes, businesses, and medical buildings were flattened in this area, with concrete walls collapsed and crushed into the foundations. A large steel-reinforced step and floor structure leading to a completely destroyed medical building was deflected upwards several inches and cracked. Steel trusses from some of the buildings were rolled up like paper, and deformation or twisting of the main support beams was noted. Multiple vehicles were thrown and mangled or wrapped around trees nearby. Several 300-pound concrete parking stops anchored to rebar were torn from a parking lot in this area and thrown up 60 yards away. Iowa State University wind engineer Parthur Sarkar calculated the force needed to remove the parking stops from the lot and found that winds exceeding 200 miles per hour would have been required. Damage became remarkably widespread and catastrophic at and around the nearby St. John's Regional Medical Center, which lost nearly every window on 3 sides, interior walls, ceilings, and part of its roof. Its life flight helicopter was also blown away and destroyed. Loss of backup power caused 5 fatalities, and the 9-story building was so damaged that it was deemed structurally compromised and later torn down. According to the NWS office in Springfield, Missouri, such extreme structural damage to such a large and well-built structure likely indicated winds at or exceeding 200 miles per hour. Vehicles in the hospital parking lot were thrown into the air and mangled beyond recognition, including a semi-truck that was tossed 125 yards and wrapped completely around a debarked tree. Small debris from the hospital, including x-rays, medical reports, and dental records, was found in Greene and Polk counties, many miles to the east. Windrowing of debris was noted in this area, and more concrete parking stops were removed from the St. John's parking lot. Virtually every house near McClelland Boulevard and 26th Street was flattened. Some were swept away completely, and trees sustained severe debarking. As the tornado tracked eastward, it maintained EF5 strength as it crossed Main Street, Route 43, between 20th and 26th Streets. It heavily damaged every business along that stretch and virtually destroyed several institutional buildings. It tracked just south of downtown, narrowly missing it. Entire neighborhoods were leveled in this area, with some more homes swept away, and trees were stripped completely of their bark. At some residences, reinforced concrete porches were deformed, or in some cases, completely torn away. Damage to driveways was noted at some residences as well. Numerous vehicles were tossed up to several blocks, and a few homeowners never located their vehicles. A large church and nursing home, Franklin Technology Center, St. Mary's Catholic Church and School, and Joplin High School were all destroyed along this corridor. The Greenbrier Nursing Home was completely leveled, with 21 fatalities occurring there alone, with dozens of fatalities occurring elsewhere in this area as well. No one was in the high school at the time, as the graduation ceremonies held about 3 miles to the north end. Missouri Southern State University had concluded shortly before the storm. Pieces of cardboard were found embedded in stucco walls that remained standing up at Joplin High School. Steel beams and pieces of fencing were deeply embedded into the ground in fields near the high school. Steel fence posts were bent to the ground in opposite directions, and a school bus was thrown into a nearby bus garage. As the tornado crossed Connecticut Avenue further to the east, it destroyed several large apartment buildings, which resulted in 14 fatalities, along with a Dillon's grocery store and bank. Only the concrete safety deposit box vault remained at the bank, and a wooden 2x4 was found speared completely through a concrete curb at one location. The tornado then approached Range Line Road, the main commercial strip in the eastern part of Joplin, affecting additional neighborhoods along 20th Street. The now heavily rain-wrapped tornado continued at EF5 intensity as it crossed Range Line Road in that corridor between about 13th and 32nd Streets. The tornado continued producing catastrophic damage as it reached its widest point nearly 1 mile across. As the tornado struck a Pizza Hut on South Range Line Road, store manager Christopher Lucas herded 4 employees and 15 customers into a walk-in freezer. With difficulty closing the door, he wrapped a bungee cord holding the door shut around his arm until he was sucked out and killed by the tornado. The tornado completely destroyed a Walmart Supercenter, a Home Depot, and numerous other businesses and restaurants in the area, many of which were flattened. Numerous metal roof trusses were torn from the Home Depot building and were found broken and mangled in nearby fields. Cars that originated at the Home Depot parking lot were found hundreds of yards away. Asphalt was scoured from the parking lots at Walmart and a nearby pizza restaurant, and large tractor trailers were thrown up to 200 yards away. An Academy Sports and Outdoors store along Range Line sustained major structural damage, and a chair was found impaled legs first through an exterior stucco wall there. A nearby 3-story apartment complex was also devastated, and 2 cell phone towers collapsed. In this area, numerous cars were thrown and piled on top of each other. 100-pound manhole covers were moved from roads and thrown. The ground scoured, and a Pepsi distribution plant was completely leveled. Additional calculations with regards to the manhole covers by Partha Sarkar revealed that winds had to have exceeded 200 miles per hour for the manhole covers to be removed. 20 fatalities occurred in this area, and the damage was rated as EF5. Extreme damage continued in the area of Duquesne Road in southeast Joplin. Many houses and industrial and commercial buildings were flattened in this area as well. The industrial park near the corner of 20th and Duquesne was especially hard hit, with nearly every building flattened. Several large metal warehouse structures were swept cleanly from their foundations, and several heavy industrial vehicles were thrown up to 400 yards away in this area. One of the many warehouses affected was a Cummins warehouse, a concrete block and steel building that was destroyed. The last area of EF5 damage occurred in the industrial park, and a nearby fast strip gas station and convenience store was completely destroyed. Many homes were destroyed further to the east at EF3 to EF4 strength and in a nearby subdivision, and East Middle School sustained major damage. The tornado then continued on an east-to-east-southeast trajectory towards I-44, where it weakened nonetheless. Vehicles were blown off the highway and mangled near US 71, exit 11, on what is now the I-49 interchange. The damage at and around the interchange was rated EF2 to EF3. The weakening tornado continued to track into the rural areas of southeastern Jasper County and northeastern Newton County, where damage was generally minor to moderate, with trees, mobile homes, outbuildings, and frame homes damaged mainly at EF0 to EF1 strength. The tornado lifted east of Diamond at 6:20 p.m. CDT, according to aerial surveys. The total track length was 21.62 miles long, and the tornado was up to 1 mile across at its widest point. A total of 158 people were killed, and over 1,150 others were injured along the path. A separate EF2 touched down near Wentworth from the same supercell about 25 miles east-southeast of Joplin, beginning roughly 10 minutes before the dissipation of the tornado. A preliminary survey of the tornado damage done by the NWS office in Springfield began on May 23rd. The initial survey confirmed a violent tornado rated as a high-end EF4. Subsequent damage surveys, however, found evidence of more intense damage, so the tornado was upgraded to an EF5 with an estimated winds over 200 miles per hour, peaking at 225 to 250 miles per hour. The scope of the damage was immense. According to the local branch of the American Red Cross, about 25% of Joplin was destroyed, though emergency officials reported some level of damage to about 75% of the city. A week after the tornado, Joplin's mayor estimated that 25% of the businesses licensed in the city were damaged or destroyed. Official accountings of the precise number of buildings damaged or destroyed vary somewhat. According to the National Institute of Standards and Technology technical report, in total 7,964 buildings were damaged in Joplin, including 7,411 residential buildings and 553 non-residential. At least 3,734 of those buildings, including 3,181 of the residential and all 553 of the non-residential buildings, sustained so much damage as to be considered destroyed. According to a Federal Emergency Management Agency study, 8,264 homes were impacted, and of those, 3,884 were significantly damaged, and 4,380 were destroyed. The tornado also severely damaged critical infrastructure in the city, hampering emergency response and recovery efforts. Approximately 4,000 electricity distribution poles were damaged, more than 110 miles of distribution line brought down, 135 transmission towers affected, and an electrical substation in the path of the tornado was completely destroyed. 2 more were damaged, but irreparably so. In the immediate aftermath of the storm, approximately 20,000 people were left without power, and those with homes left intact could not get restored until 10 to 12 days later, when their dwellings were approved for safe occupancy. The ultimate cost of rebuilding Joplin's damaged electricity system was calculated at $25.7 million. The tornado also caused about 4,000 leaks in water service lines, dropping Joplin's water system pressure below operating level and necessitating a block-by-block effort to find and repair the service line leaks, with a water boil order issued for the entire city in the meantime. Water pressure was returned to the normal outside of the damage area within 48 hours, and the water boil order was lifted after 5.5 days. Approximately 3,500 gas meters and 55,000 feet of gas main were damaged, and it took 2 weeks to stern every gas leak. Some damaged mains could not be shut off because they served critical facilities like Freeman Health System, the lone remaining hospital in Joplin. In East Joplin, 3,000 to 5,000 pounds of anhydrous ammonia was released from a valve at a trucking facility and quickly contained. No significant toxic releases occurred. With 21 cell towers down and fiber cables damaged, cellular communications, voice calls in particular, text messages less so, were heavily impeded. Temporary mobile cell towers were deployed by wireless carriers to fill the gap within 24 hours. By May 24th, 3 towers owned by AT&T and Sprint had been restored. An early estimate from catastrophe risk modeling firm EcoCat Inc. placed the insured losses from the tornado at $1 to $3 billion US. By mid-June, more than 19,000 insurance claims had been filed, a number that eventually rose to 61,000, with a total payout of more than $2 billion, 31% going to homeowners and 5% to those who lost vehicles. The impact on the insurance industry was not so much due to the number of claims, but the cumulative effects of such a large number of total losses. More than 2,500 local people employed in insurance were involved in some capacity. It was presumed that State Farm would assume the largest share of these losses, having market share of 27% for homeowners insurance and 21% for automobile insurance. The $2.8 billion in damage is the largest amount for a tornado since 1950. As of May 2013, the official death toll from NWS was listed at 158, while the city of Joplin listed the death toll at 161. The list was up to 162 until one man's injuries were found to be unrelated to the event. In one indirect fatality, a policeman was struck by lightning and killed while assisting recovery and cleanup efforts the day after the storm. Another live indirect fatality occurred another 5 indirect fatalities occurred after a disease outbreak of mucormycosis infected 13 people, possibly 18 people. Shortly after the tornado, authorities had listed 1,300 people as missing, but the number quickly dwindled as they were accounted for. Many people were reported to have been trapped in destroyed houses. 17 people were rescued from the rubble the day after the tornado struck. Of 146 sets of remains recovered from the rubble, 134 victims have been positively identified by June 1st. This total included 4 sets of partial remains, some of which may have been from a single person. On June 2nd, it was announced that 4 more victims had died. 6 people were killed when St. John's Regional Medical Center was struck by the tornado. 5 of those deaths were patients on ventilators who died after the building lost power and the backup generator did not work. The 6th fatality was a hospital visitor. The Joplin Globe reported that 54% of the people killed died in the residences, 32% died in non-residential areas, and 14% died in vehicles or outdoors. Joplin officials after the tornado announced plans to require hurricane ties or other fasteners between the houses and their foundations. Devices add up to about $600 to the construction costs. Officials rejected a proposal to require concrete basements in new houses. Officials noted that as of 2009, only 28% of Joplin's new homes had basements, compared with 38% 2 decades before. At least 1,150 people were injured severely enough to seek treatment at regional hospitals. Injuries ranged from cuts and bruises to impalement by large degrees. Officials say they rescued 944 pets and reunited 292 with owners. In 2013, the American Society of Civil Engineers published a study disputing the tornado's initial EF5 rating. Based on surveying damage on over 150 structures within a 6-mile segment of the storm's path, according to the report, over 83% of the damage was caused by wind speeds of 135 miles per hour or less, the maximum wind speed of an EF2 tornado. An additional 13% was caused by EF3 wind speeds, and 3% was consistent with EF4 winds. The study found no damage consistent with wind speeds of over 200 miles per hour, the minimum threshold of an EF5 tornado. Researchers concluded that the inability to find EF5 damage was due to the absence of construction standards that were able to determine the necessary wind speeds. Bill Colburn, a member of the engineering team that surveyed the damage, declared that a relatively large number of buildings could have survived in Joplin if they had been built to sustain hurricane winds. However, the EF5 rating stood. The NWS office in Springfield stated that their survey teams only found a small area of EF5 structural damage, and that it could have easily been missed in the survey at and around St. John's Medical Center. Bill Davis, head of Springfield NWS office, said that the results of the study do not surprise me at all, adding that there was only a very small area of EF5 damage in Joplin. We knew right off the bat there was EF4 damage. It took us longer to identify the EF5 damage that it would take winds of over 200 miles per hour to do that damage. Additionally, the basis for the EF5 rating in Joplin was mainly contextual rather than structural, with non-conventional damage indicators such as the removal of concrete parking stops, manhole covers, reinforced concrete porches, driveways, and asphalt used to arrive at a final rating. The presence of wind road structural debris, instances of very large vehicles such as buses, vans, and semi-trucks being thrown hundreds of yards to several blocks from their point of origin. The fact that some homeowners never located their vehicles and the overwhelming extent and totality of the destruction in Joplin were also taken into consideration. According to a detailed survey by Timothy Marshall, a majority of houses were destroyed at winds of EF2 to 3 strength. However, he identified 22 well-anchored houses which were assigned EF5 ratings. Immediately following the disaster, emergency responders were deployed within and to the city to undertake search and rescue efforts. Then, Governor Jay Nixon declared a state of emergency for the Joplin area shortly after the tornado hit and ordered Missouri National Guard troops to the city. By May 23rd, Missouri Task Force 1, consisting of 85 personnel, 4 dogs, and heavy equipment, arrived and began searching for missing persons. 5 heavy rescue teams were also sent to the city a day later. Within 2 days, numerous agencies arrived to assist residents in the recovery process. The National Guard deployed 191 personnel and placed 2,000 more on standby to be deployed if needed. In addition, the Missouri State Highway Patrol provided 180 troopers to assist the Joplin Police Department and other local agencies with law enforcement, rescue, and recovery efforts that also included the deployment of 5 ambulance strike teams and a total of 25 ambulances in the affected area on May 24th, as well as over 75 Marines from the Fort Leonard Wood Army Base. Due to the severe damage caused by the tornado, the traveling Piccadilly Circus was unable to perform as scheduled. As a result, the circus employees brought their 2 adult elephants to help drag damaged automobiles and other heavy debris out of the streets. Despite the destruction, 2 Waffle House locations in Joplin remained open following the tornado. This led Federal Emergency Management Agency Administrator Craig Fugate to develop the concept of the Waffle House Index for measuring disaster impact. In May 2012, the Missouri National Guard released documents showing that 4 soldiers looted consumer electronics from a ruined Walmart during efforts to locate survivors the day after the tornado. According to the investigative memo, they believed the merchandise was going to be destroyed. All 4 soldiers were demoted and had letters of reprimand placed in their personal files, but were never prosecuted, though many civilian looters were. The Joplin tornado generated an estimated 3 million cubic yards of debris, an amount sufficient to cover a football field 120 stories high. Removal efforts lasted for months, and at their height, more than 410 trucks a day transported debris to landfills in Joplin itself, as well as nearby Galena and Lamar. The tornado also led to renewed lead contamination on many Joplin properties. Joplin had been the site of lead mining and processing for decades before cleanup efforts began in the mid-1990s, and the tornado's upheaval of the surface as it swept houses from foundations and uprooted trees recontaminated about 40% of yards in southern Joplin, leaving behind chunks of raw lead ore the size of tennis or golf balls. The city spent more than $5 million to clean the properties up using grants from the Environmental Protection Agency, scraping off the topsoil and replacing it with clean soil, and further required that builders in the damaged area test for lead and clean it up before construction. The tornado also highlighted a new form of disaster response using social media. This type of disaster response is now known as social media emergency management. News outlets began aggregating images and video from eyewitnesses shared through social media. Public citizen-led Facebook groups and websites coordinated information, needs, and offers. The results were so effective the project became a finalist in the 2011 Mashable Awards for Best Social Good Cause campaign. President Barack Obama toured the community on May 29th, flying into Joplin Regional Airport and speaking at a memorial at the Taylor Performing Arts Center at Missouri Southern State University, about 2 miles north of the worst of the devastation. Obama had been on a state visit to Europe at the time of the storm. Members of the controversial Westboro Baptist Church were also scheduled to protest the same day in Joplin, but they did not show up. There was a massive counter-protest that was organized in response to the Westboro protest, in which thousands of protesters showed up holding signs saying, "God loves Joplin, and we support you, Joplin." President Obama also delivered the commencement address at Joplin High School on May 21st, 2012, a year after the tornado. FEMA maintained a large presence in Joplin following the tornado, with as many as 820 employees working in the city. One FEMA undertaking was the construction of 15 temporary housing sites in and around Joplin, which housed 586 family/households at their peak. The city, warned by federal officials that it should expect to lose 25% of its population following the tornado, responded quickly and built an average of 5 houses a week between 2011 and 2022. Most businesses reopened, and more than 300 new businesses opened between 2011 and early 2016. In April 2012, Joplin voters approved a $62 million bond to continue constructing new schools and repair damaged existing ones. Engineers criticized the tilt-up construction of the Home Depot building, in which all but 2 of the walls collapsed in a domino effect after the tornado lifted the roof, killing 7 people in the front of the store, although 28 people in the back of the store survived when these walls collapsed outwards. Home Depot officials disagreed with the study published by the Kansas City Star and said they would use the tilt-up practice when they rebuilt the Joplin store. On June 1st, the Home Depot said it would have a new temporary 30,000 square feet building erected and operated within 2 weeks. In the meantime, it opened for business in the parking lot of its demolished building. On June 20th, the Home Depot opened a temporary 60,000 square foot building constructed by the company's disaster recovery team. Within 2 years, the city's workers and community groups compelled and published Joplin Pays It Forward to give recovery advice to other places struck by disaster. Many homes and businesses have been rebuilt since the tornado. Joplin High School was reopened on September 2nd, 2014. St. John's Regional Medical Center, now Mercy Hospital, had to be rebuilt and reopened in 2015. 18 people committed suicide in the wake of the tornado, according to the executive director of the Community Clinic of Southwest Missouri, a co-chair of the city's long-term recovery team. Calls about domestic violence grew in the year following the disaster. In 2024, Jennifer M. First, J. Brian Houston, and Sang-Won Lee with the University of Tennessee, along with Megan Carnahan and Mansu Yu with the University of Missouri, published a qualitative case study of survivors from the tornado, in which they described how the survivors recovered from tornado brain. In the paper, they stated approximately 41% of the residents of Joplin were directly impacted by the tornado, and that the tornado led to various mental health disorders such as depression, anxiety, and post-traumatic stress disorder. A number of documentaries have been produced about the Joplin tornado and its effects on the city. These include Heartland, A Portrait of Survival, directed by Erica Tremblay and featured at the Omaha Film Festival and the St. Louis International Film Festival, as well as Deadline and Disaster, directed by Beth Pike, which followed the staff of the Joplin Globe in the tornado's aftermath and received a regional Emmy in the documentary cultural category during the 37th Mid-America Emmy Awards. In October 2011, the Joplin Globe released a hardcover pictorial book entitled 32 Minutes of May, Joplin Tornado. That's all for today's video. Make sure to like and subscribe if you like the content, and turn on the notifications if you want to see more.